welcome to the Romance Writers Room. Welcome. It's been a while since we've been here. Life has been chaotic, friends. It's the only thing I can say. It's been chaotic. But I am with the wonderful Ivy L. Thames. We will be talking about queer romances. First, I would like to excuse Des. Our lovely friend is having a good old time with her best friend, Heather, who is visiting for, I think, the weekend or the week. So all the great positive vibes to Des and for her to enjoy some good old girlfriend time. Uh, she deserves it. After everything, she deserves it. So, uh, before we get into the topic, if you have not seen the title of the thumbnail, I'm gonna go ahead and let Ivy introduce herself. Links to her website and her books are on the description down below. But let her introduce herself. Ivy, hi.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I am an author of queer adult romance and poetry. I personally identify as a lesbian, but I have written many sexualities and different types of relationships within that kind of queer umbrella. And I'm really excited to be here.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Again, links on the description. Uh, so, friends, before I start saying hi, if you are new here or watching the replay, we're going to talk about queer romances. This is very important, not only for me, but, for the, I will say, minority communities at large to kind of like uplift each other. I mean, I'm very invested because I have not only friends, but I have family in the queer community. And I will love for them to feel as comfortable as they have, like, let's say, a straight person is in society. So it's very important that we lend these spaces for queer voices to talk about. Uh, so let me go ahead and say hi. I'm not going to introduce myself. Everyone that I've seen in chat knows me. Probably Ivy has seen my crazy posts on Instagram for a while. I am pretty the same everywhere. I keep it the same so people are not that surprise.
It's
It might be a bit
consistency.
tougher. Yeah, chaos is the consistency. So we have our friend Barrett. Sorry that you are nursing a cold flu, but glad that you are here for the queer romances. We got Morgan. We got author Alicia. Hello, hello. JC Carpenter, friend, who also writes poetry, fellow poet. And let's see, we got Sky Winters. Let's see, have everyone so far that I have to say hi, because everyone's just hi to everyone, to you. Hi, nice to be meeting you, Ivy. Hello, Ivy. A lot of love, all of the hellos. See this?
I feel so
You guys,
welcome already.
yes. Good job, friends. So, queer romances. For anyone who is living under a rock and doesn't know what queer romances are, can you concisely say what it is?
So, romance as a genre is the story of a developing, typically romantic relationship, and there is a happy ending. So, queer
Yes.
romances are specific to anyone who does not identify as straight. So, that can be two non straight people, more than two. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have actually written queer male female, so the guy was bisexual and the girl was demisexual. That would still be considered queer because they're not straight.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Love that. I did. That is border control RL. Did I get
Yes,
the name right?
border control escape.
Escape.
Yep.
There we go. I was like, I don't know if I have it correct, but
You were almost there.
almost
You got
there.
it.
Almost there. So yes, check it out. I did wanted to talk about, like, we love talking tropes here. I mean, we have an entire show that was just tropes. And I think we went almost 2 hours talking about
Oh wow.
tropes. And everyone was like, can we have a second round? And I'm like, give us a couple of months. Because it's a lot of trope talking.
I love
But
tropes.
yes. But I also, um I'm gonna guess. I'm not gonna like talk like if I am the expert of it, but I'm imagining there are like sort of specific tropes in the queer community, in the romance queer community, that may not be as popular or may not be in it in straight romance.
Yeah, definitely. So any I would argue that any genre of book is going to have certain stereotypes um, that tend toward that specific genre. With
Mm-hmm.
romance, it's not an exception. I actually, so we're gonna get a little personal for a second. I identified as bi for a long time, and so I am most familiar with certain biphobic tropes
Mm,
that make an unfortunate appearance in some romances when they're trying to be inclusive but not quite hitting the mark.
yeah.
So some of the things I've seen include the cheating bisexual, um, the hypersexual bisexual. Uh, there's those are the main two, honestly, that come to mind offhand. The issue isn't necessarily that you portray a bisexual person as having sexual, desires.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people do. That's not the issue. The issue is when you kind of narrow them down to just
That, yeah.
that trope or that trait, and it can be very harmful because there are some bisexual people of any sexuality who don't experience that, and so you run the risk of alienating them and making them feel othered. And for the people who do experience that to some extent, it can make them feel like a caricature.
Yeah.
So it's something to be aware of, and honestly, it's important to do your research, especially if you're writing a sexuality that you don't identify as, and just make sure you are aware and knowledgeable and keeping yourself up to date and with the times.
Yeah. Also, it kind of like when you hyper focus on a specific trait for a character, it kind of like it doesn't have any room for nuances. And
Right.
especially in romance, nuances, it's what makes a lot of the
Yes.
tension and the conflict and the juicy thing. Like that's what people like building a story that is just on a development between two characters. Straight up that. Nuances is the biggest thing that you need to have in mind, because that is just it is stale. To me, it's stale. And I come when you mentioned the hypersexuality for bisexuals, that reminds me that straight fiction does that too to women of color. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we see how harmful this is, why we're doing this again here. Like,
Yeah.
we have time to, you know, not do it,
Yes.
to fix it. And it's frustrating for me. And I'm an ally. I'm not from the community. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna talk about their voice or anything like that. Make that clear. And that frustrates me. I'm not even imagining how frustrating it is for people in the community.
Yeah, it can be very frustrating. It can be difficult, especially in a place where you feel like you're supposed to be safe,
Yeah.
and you get into it and you realize I am not fully accepted here as I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, do you uh remember any other like tropes or stereotypes that writers should avoid?
There are some tropes in, say, sapphic fiction
Mm-hmm.
that I would say are fine but can be overused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I mean, that's tropes, right? So it's just being aware of what you're doing, what you're saying in what you're writing or in what you choose to read. Um, there are some sapphic romances, especially lesbian romances, that focus heavily on, you know, the girls being what's called femme, where they have the more
Mm.
feminine uh, perspective and appearance. And that's been actually mentioned, say, on Twitter recently, that the more in the middle or even butch representation is lagging. And so that's something to be aware of for writers out there, just making sure we're including all appearances and
Mm-hmm.
all different types, even among the same sexuality.
Yeah. What's your favorite trope to write?
Oh, fake relationship. I don't have to
Yes.
think about it. It's my favorite. I'm currently working on two at the
Yes.
moment. I have right now a fake engaged fantasy romance and a fake dating at a wedding contemporary romance. And I'm
Oh,
just having the
lovely.
time of my life.
Oh, I love it. Like I started watching so we were gonna get into like kind of like book recommendations or author recommendations like at the end, just so everyone in chat and on replay can broaden their reading
Yeah,
experience.
absolutely.
I don't have that many recommendations because interesting, I consume more queer media in like movies and TV. I am slowly making my way into the book media. And I
Okay, that's
usually
fine.
just I just poke up my friends, be like, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? Because I do have a couple of friends who mostly just read queer. And that is wonderful because they have great recommendations. But yes, let's widen people's reading experience. But rounding about what I wanted to say, because chaotic. I was like, I need to get back into rewarding myself with watching something, because as a writer and as someone who works in an office, I spend almost 10 to 12 hours in front of a computer. And I'm like, I need to break this somehow. Uh, and reading doesn't really help. So I'm like, maybe I can just like have an hour to watch something on my phone, mostly on my phone because it's just easier to just put it a little further. Don't have to be like hunching over a keyboard or anything like that. And I started watching a show and it's a fake dating. It's a friends with benefits to fake dating. And I'm like, oh God, hook and sinker. I cannot think about anything else than that show. And it's on air. So I am
Oh.
suffering through waiting for weekly
Oh
episodes.
no.
I
That
love
sounds
that you're
amazing.
working. I love that you're working on two fake datings, one contemporary, one fantasy. I'm like the moment anyone says fake relationship, I'm in. Don't tell me anything else, I'm in.
I am simple. I'm a simple woman. I have simple
Yeah,
needs. All I need is a fake relationship.
yeah. And as when for me, I don't know why, when you combine friends with benefits with fake dating, I'm like, oh, this is gonna get really messy, really juicy. I am here for all the shenanigans and all the angst. Love
Yes.
it. Love it, love it.
It's kind of funny.
Left
People complain about the third act breakup. I actually love third act breakup because of all the angst.
me too. I've always been a very angsty writer, and I tend to enjoy a lot of angsty stories in general. Doesn't matter the media. And I'm like, I understand people who don't want the third art breakup, but
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
need it. I need it because I just like the messiness that I enjoy in the middle of a book needs to have a snap moment. And in romances, for me, is that breakup. It's
Yeah,
like
that
for
totally
me in
makes sense.
fantasy, yeah, if for me in fantasies, either is a really big battle or someone has to die. That's just me.
Yes. If there's not bloodshed, you know.
Yeah, it's not if there's not a through feeling of failure in a romance, I'm like, so what's all the trouble that we went through for like 150 pages for? I need the angst.
Yes.
So you mentioned research, and I wanted to touch on this. Also, I wanted to do the caveat disclaimer: do not take this as gospel for the entire queer community. This is not
No.
blank statements. This is just personal experience, personal opinions, and observations. Do your due diligence of research, especially because not we don't know what you're planning to write or what you're writing. So don't be lazy about this.
Yeah, I'm only one person. I have
Yes.
only had my own experiences. I
Mm-hmm.
am not, you know, I'm doing my best, but
Yeah,
I'm not flawless.
exactly. Before we get further, I wanted to like don't come and say just be Ivy said this on the romance right. No, 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 no. We're not gonna do that. That's just being lazy, friends. So, research. This is very important, even if you're within the community. I mean, you did mention that you have a book out that you did research because it was
Yes.
not the same sexuality that you have.
Right. So in we'll say this border control escape, um, I did a lot of research for that because Mariana, the female lead, is
Hmm.
demisexual. And I do not identify as demisexual. I have some friends who are. And so I talked to them. I did internet research. I think I even found a paper book. Basically, I did my best to educate myself and provide as real an experience for a person of that sexuality as I could without having lived it.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to like because we are also talking about identities and sexuality and all that. Sky asked a question. It's a two-parter, so I'm gonna read it. She identifies as demi-ace, but never written a demi-ace character as her platform is not from facing queer. And so she has been up in her head, ignoring backlash. The question is, how do you get the to balance between writing characters that match your public brand and characters who you can relate to?
That's an awesome question. So there is a balance for sure. I I have taken like the queer umbrella as my brand. My queer romance is my primary output. So I have had some backlash, you could say, over offering a book that's queer male female because that's not queer enough. And I would
Mm-hmm.
disagree very strongly on that. But because I think that it's important to show people as they are and to express the different types of people that are out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, I would go so far as to argue that your brand doesn't have to be front facing as queer to have a queer main character.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I'm going to be bold today. I think it's actually really important that we have queer characters outside of the queer label for
Mm-hmm.
books. I think seeing people of different sexualities in mysteries and I'm fantasy and all these different genres where the the queerness is not what defines them, it's just a part of
Mm-hmm.
them. I think that's actually super important. I think that that is going to be a big part of us, this community kind of blooming in the world and becoming more accepted, is when we're able to be seen apart from the big labels. So I
Yeah.
guess let me see. The question was, um, yeah, I would say go
I
for it.
would just include them.
Yeah.
Like you said, just include them on your books like any other character. Like it's like they just so happen to be that.
Hmm.
They just so happen have that identity. They just so happen, like this is with now we're gonna I'm gonna broaden it even more. This same thing is going to be with anyone. They just so happen to be white. They just so happen to be Hispanic. They just so happen to be Asian. They just so happen to be any of the identities under the queer umbrella. They just so happen to be native. Like, they just so happen to be people. What that person is composed, you're the writer, you decide. I kind of like also sort of remember your brand, Sky, and I will say that if you eventually start including um more diverse identities, it will still be within your brand.
Yes.
Uh, because I think it was sort of like uh so and so character and so and so who are brave to love them. I think that was kind of like the way that her branding goes, and I'm like, that just applies to any identity, and that just applies to any nationality. So go you. Um, let me hide this. There we go. Um, do you think that for when you're writing within your identity, do you still do research?
It depends, honestly.
Hmm.
Sometimes I do because I want to make sure that I'm reflecting more than just my own experience. So I want what I write to be true to people at large. So
Hmm.
even though, let's say I identify as a lesbian, I will still do research on what other people who identify as lesbians experience. because I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can of representing them. It's not just me.
Yeah. Also, people will have opinions regardless. So again, to you, friend,
Yes.
uh, humans at large have very unnecessary opinions sometimes,
Oh,
and
the
they're
internet
very
is a
loud.
lawless wasteland. You can't
Yeah,
live your life based on what people will comment.
yeah, yeah. Uh, this I want to like sit down here for a while.
Okay.
Not only because romance, and this is a fight that we see on social media every 3 to 6 months when someone is like, does Roman really needs to have a happy ending?
Yeah.
That's the fantasy of it. Like, fantasy genre promise you a out of this world, out of ordinary world that you can sink your teeth and want to spend hours in it. Romance genre promise you that no matter what you go through, you're gonna be happy at the end with the person that you love. That's the promise, that's the fantasy.
Yes.
And this is something that queer spaces are still fighting for. And it blows my mind that in the genre that promises this is still a hard thing for people to accept. Like,
Yeah. So we when we touched on tropes and stereotypes, one that I didn't bring up at the time but is appropriate to mention now is the
mm-hmm,
barrier gaze trope. And that is thankfully becoming a little less common now, but for a long time it was very common that if you had an explicitly queer character, they ended up dead by the end. And I'm so tired. um it's very disheartening to
mm-hmm,
see those kind of endings for people who look like me and for people who, you know, are a part of this community, to see that okay, either we're dead or we don't get a happy ending. We're alone
mm-hmm.
and we're, you know, sad. It's
Got
so
left.
it's horrible. Like,
Horrible.
why? I don't need to ask why. I know why. I grew up in a very homophobic society. So I can see where they're coming from in that way, but it's so hurtful.
Yeah.
And so yes, I live and die on the hill that queer characters deserve happy endings, which is why
Yes.
my romances will always have a happily ever after, because we deserve that too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something very, I'm trying to think of the opposite of disheartening and I can't think of it. The It's encouraging to be able
Encouraging.
to
Yeah.
look for yourself in a book and see this character that you relate to get that happy ending. They get love.
Mm-hmm.
They get to, I don't know, ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
You know, queer
It's
people
also
have gone through a lot.
empowering.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I was going to say queer people have gone through so much throughout the years, throughout the centuries, and
Mm-hmm.
if we can give them a little joy, give us a little joy in this way, I think it counts for a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. And I really wanted to touch on this and like sit down and mule over it because um I know a lot of people who want to like write queer romances that are not queer, and
Okay.
I always try to remind it, unless you're writing like you're if you're just writing queer characters falling in love and you're not writing about the queer experience, please do write them and be sure that they have a happy ending, because we need to produce more of that. Because again, there's nothing wrong with your identity, there's nothing wrong with who you love, and media needs to keep showing up that they're not wrong, that they not only deserve, but they have the right to exist, and that they have the right to a happy ending. They have a
Yes.
right to have happy, loving parents. They have a right to have a lovely, a brilliant, lovely partner. They have a right to have wonderful friends. We need to show that in books, TVs, movies, art, graphics, all of that.
Yeah.
The same way we say black people deserve to have a happy ending, Asian people, Hispanic people, queer people of all nationalities deserve that. They have the
Yes.
right to. So again, unless you're not right, if you're writing about the queer experience, take a few step backs first. Let's see if there's anyone else who's doing that, and maybe we amplify their voices. If you still
Yeah.
feel the call, sensitivity readers are not important. They are necessary, so you
Yes.
don't put more harmful stuff out. But if it's not about the queer experience, it's just again two people who happen to be queer falling in love. Please do so. Just let's keep showing the world that is wonderful. No matter who you love or how you identify yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
let's see. We have a couple of other questions. Okay, let me pull this up. Would you recommend someone with a solid brand writing hetero romances to start a new pen name if they want to also break into the queer romance space?
Hmm.
Or do you find there is a crossover?
That I do know some writers who have different pen names for hetero versus queer romance.
Mm-hmm.
I also know some authors who have one romance pen name, and that's you get what you
It.
get from whatever they're putting out, whether it's hetero or whether it's queer. It's from, it's from the same person. Now, personally, I my inclination is to say it my inclination is to say that you should be able to write hetero and queer romances under the same pen name. There is also something to be said for dividing up pen names by genre. So if you're writing hetero romances versus queer fantasy, that might be something to consider a separate pen name for, because, contemporary romance versus a fantasy setting.
Mm-hmm.
But it does come down to you and what you want to get out of the theoretical new pen name. Um, I would like to see a world in which one author, one pen name can produce all sorts
Anything.
of things.
Yeah.
Um, but there are people who would argue that uh, queer versus hetero, romance versus fantasy, that sort of thing, that you should have different pen names for different pursuits. So I guess the answer is there's no easy answer, unfortunately. Um, if it were
Do you
me,
think?
I would use the same pen name.
Yeah. Do you think gays matters? Because I know I've seen a lot of talk about queer media and the female and then the queer gays on those medias. Do you if an author is aiming for a specific gaze, do you think then will be more recommended to do a pen name? And for anyone who's like new to this like queer gaze, female gaze in the queer media, uh this is a little hard to explain if no one consumes as much queer media as I or other people consume. So a lot of the times when you are consuming queer media and you sort of feel that the characters could be heterosexual characters and they might be problematic as heterosexual characters, that most likely is for a female gaze audience. And I say most likely, I'm just not gonna say it is most likely because a lot of the times people who produce this kind of media don't realize they're doing it. They're not being intentional about it.
Right.
Um, when you see queer media that is for the queer eye, you feel it in your gut that they just cannot be any other identity. So if the author is thinking about that kind of gaze, do you think having a pen name will matter?
If you're changing the gaze and like what the reader is intended to get out of the pairing and the romance, there is something to be said for a different
Hmm.
pen name for your new direction, I guess. Uh, it's not necessary, but it might help your readers to know what to expect.
Nice, nice, nice. Let's see. There is
Yes.
a discourse. Yeah, I see this discourse more on the book community than other medias.
Hmm.
Um, but with the increase of movies and series with female romances, there's still difference in the type of audience when you get down to the actual portrayal of the characters. That's why I was like, just the entire community, because I've been seeing this conversation going on, and I was like, would the audience make some difference in choosing to go for a pen name or not? But that's that's interesting. So another question. In your opinion, do you think an author should outwardly state their identity, sexuality in order to write queer romance? Specifically, a story that focuses on the experience of being that identity.
That's That's
That's a loaded
actually
question.
reminding me of the was it Becky Abertali, and there were some
Yeah.
actors who basically were forced to come out. Um,
Yes.
so that said, my general opinion is that people should not have to come out. They should not be forced to come out.
Mm-hmm.
However, there not everyone who writes queer romance is necessarily queer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it probably says something that that's what you're interested in. For me, I didn't fully realize I was queer until I was starting to write that and realize, oh, I'm actually this is me. So my only hesitation with something like out, state your sexuality for the board is that not everyone is ready
Mm-hmm.
to come out yet. And while I do think that stories about the sexuality experience should be reserved for people of that sexuality as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is also a danger in requiring someone to come out to portray a queer identity when they might be an ally, they also might just not be ready.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my general response. There's always nuance, but
Yeah. Yeah. This is it feels like a loaded question, especially because this is something that is way it's asked a lot. You can just change identity with nationality, but with nationality, it's easier. Like there's not a lot of consequences on your safety. I mean, currently there's some nationalities that if they are completely out, they might face some safety concerns.
sure,
That's for sure. But it's not as prominent and as vicious as identities, and it it sucks.
yeah.
It's the as eloquent as I can say. It sucks that it's a matter of being like, do I feel safe to out myself if I am not out, or if am I safe, or are my sensitivity readers safe for me to be like, yeah, I may not be this identity, but I consulted so and so and so. Because
Right.
also, if you do that, because they are sensitivity readers, it implies that they have one or many of the identities that you have explored in your story. So it's not only the danger to the author, it's the danger to any of the consultants and all the anyone that was a primary resource. And so this it's a very loaded question, but it's also something that needs to be taught. Because
Yeah.
some people will say, yeah, you do have to tell me for me to believe it or something like that. But also, safety.
Yes.
It just comes
Safety,
down to safety.
in my opinion, safety has to come first. If
Yes.
you're if you're writing or anything else puts you in danger of physical or even emotional harm, I say take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I come from a very religious background. So, like, my family, for example, is not supportive of my queerness or my queer writing, but I am out to them and I know that I'm not in danger, where some people don't have that security.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely take care of yourself first.
Yeah. I. It's just there's so many cases about this that have been gone well or gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's this is sort of like a case to case kind of situation, and I feel like we're hitting a dead horse. But again,
Yeah.
safety first.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need to say it a few times for it to drill into people's heads. Uh, Thank you for answering very loaded question. It anyone who is not a cis white straight person will have to deal with sort of that kind of question. It just so happen when you're not society's norm. And I use air quotes because those
Mhm.
are just man thought, man created constraints.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing out of the ordinary. So let's get to recommending things.
Ooh. Uh so can I just start?
Yeah, go ahead. Your list is probably longer than mine,
Oh,
so Floor is
Okay.
yours.
So some books that I've enjoyed recently. On the lighter side, I've enjoyed Breaking Character by Lee Winter, one of my favorites of all time. It's very, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say wholesome, but it's an easy read, fake dating. So
Oh,
that's a check box for me. Um, it, it's romance. It has a happy ending. I'm a happy
yeah.
girl. Uh, I also, on the darker side, have enjoyed like the Fae Queen's Captive, which is also sapphic, but a little darker.
That's
I'm
Isabel
I'm
Oma?
current. That's Sierra Simone,
Oh, okay,
which
okay.
is the person I was thinking of when I said some people will write queer or hetero romance under the same pen name.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She does. Yeah.
yeah. A book I'm reading right now is Malice by Heather Walter. I'm really enjoying that. It's sort of fantasy, I think, but it's
Hmm.
sapphic and a little darker. Gosh, I just watched okay, this isn't quite a recommendation, but it's related. Um just last night I watched Mean Girls the musical, the movie,
Hmm.
and I really appreciated that Janice is explicitly a lesbian in that retelling.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, it made sense for her character, but it also just kind of warmed my heart. Like I felt seen. I was like, "Thank you.
And my
This was
brain
done
is
for me
like,
personally."
and my brain was like, wasn't she already a lesbian in the original movie? But it may be that I just perceive her like that, and
Right.
to other people, if you're not straight up tell them they are that, they will just like go fly
So,
over the head.
the way I took it in the original movie, which granted, I'm just one person and I don't always pick up on things right away. I took it as the lesbian uh basically name calling was not meant to
Mm,
be an accurate representation of her. It was meant to be an insult. But that's not to say she wasn't queer.
yeah.
Um it I don't know. I didn't take her as a lesbian in the original Mean Girls movie, but she was explicitly a lesbian in the musical retelling
Nice.
that is streaming now. So that's hot on my mind because that was just it made me so happy. Um do you have any recommendations? I'm those were the things at the top of my mind, and so now I'm trying to think of other things I've been reading recently.
I so the three also I want to do the caveat. This three first that I'm gonna mention, they are not romance writers. I also tend to read a lot more queer YA literature. Uh just because I have a cousin that is gay, and I have a few friends are lesbian, trans, bi, and I know how difficult it was for them to grow up without any stories about them. So I have made my mission to, anytime I can get my hands on a YA queer anything, I will get my hands on it. Based on support. Because if they didn't have it, I hope that I can put my money behind my mouth and keep, keep the wheel going for more queer YA
That's awesome.
literature.
Yeah.
So Adam Silvera, Mark Oshiro, and Aiden Thomas are kind of like right now sort of my go-to queer YA. I think Adam and Mark are mostly gay stories. Doesn't have to be romance. Um, I love that Aiden has a variety of identities, and they have trans characters as main
Okay.
protagonists,
That's
which I
awesome.
am loving.
Yes.
Um, For romances, I've been recommended KJ Charles and Casey Wells.
Okay, I'm
Um,
not familiar with
I'm
them.
I'm still there. They are what? They are only gay, or they do
Okay,
blanket of. I have to like check. Um, see, let's see. Okay, Casey Wells mostly writes about men who love men.
okay,
KJ Charles also. Uh, KJ apparently writes men too. Men love men, but
hmm
on historic settings, which is
okay,
so interesting.
interesting.
Also, their covers are beautiful.
Oh,
But love that we have historical queer romances. So those
they
are the
used
two I've been recommended.
queer historical romances were really not common for a long time. So it's been really cool to see them start to pop up more.
Yeah. Uh, I know. Uh, okay, I know the title of the book, and I know it's a sapphic, and I remember it because she is Puerto Rican too. So Unseelie is a duology, and it is a
Ooh,
sapphic. I think it's YA, and
okay.
I remember because I was like, "Ooh, a sapphic written by a Puerto Rican, come in." Her name is Evelise Houseman.
I'm writing
And
this down.
that is fantasy. So I'm not sure if the second book is out. It is out. So if
Ooh,
you're a binge reader,
yes,
you have the both books, and it is sappy fantasy and by a person of color. So
that's awesome.
so
I'm definitely
many
checking that
checks
out.
there. So many checks. Uh, I tried to keep my reading diverse. Uh, but I do fall for like, oh, this is so cool, this is so pretty, and they're like, oh, it is a white author. Okay.
I'm gonna cheat a little bit and look at my Goodreads.
Yeah.
My personal Goodreads is basic. I don't leave a lot of reviews, which is terrible. But I do rate books
Hmm.
mostly pretty positively. But it's basically where I keep track of what I've read. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking at. On the same
I love
page by
this.
Haley Cass,
Ivy.
I loved. Yeah.
I love this. Ivy, you did a whole list of fem regs and you did not include any of your own books. Love
See,
this.
I actually that was intentional. I didn't I will recommend my own books, obviously. I wrote them. I love them dearly. But I want if people are coming to me for recommendations, I don't
Yeah.
want them to feel like I'm just going to spout off my own books for the sake of, getting a few more
Yeah.
buys.
Yeah.
I take it very seriously. Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, I enjoyed. I think that's YA by Lex Croucher.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that.
Nice.
I don't remember if that's a genre romance or if it's genre fantasy, but I think it did
Mm.
have a happier ending, so that was a good
Okay.
one. Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins, I liked.
Mm.
Galaxy the Prettiest Star is actually a graphic novel, but very good. Of course, Legends and Lattes, like I think everyone's read that by now. But Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan was good too. I enjoyed
Mm.
that. And I liked The Orc and Her Bride by Lila Gwyn. I am eagerly awaiting the next book in the series. That one is an adult
Nice.
romance. So,
Nice.
but
Nice.
yeah. So those are some of the things I've read recently.
I will go back on the replay and let have all the links of all the books mentioned on the description box. Just give me like a week. Like I can be fast with links, but I'm not that fast.
It's a lot of books.
Uh yeah. I do mention it because some of the friends on chat love to call me the queen of links. Because I do put links very quickly. A lot of the time it's just because I have a document with all the links that most people ask. So it's just easy to grab them. But I am not that fast when we're like mentioning so many books. Be
No
like
worries.
looking for them. Uh Nia love Legends and Latte. Sky love Her Royal Highness. Um I will put them all up. Dolores also loves Aiden Tummins. Have not read Legends in Lattice yet, so I am the one person has. I mean,
Okay.
if
No judgment. It took
there's
me
no
forever.
judgment, yeah. Also, there's people who don't read queer literature, so there's gonna be a lot of people who have not read it. Also, I know JC's not a huge fantasy reader.
Oh,
She's like
okay, yeah.
venturing slowly into fantasy, so I'm not surprised. Uh, she has not read Legend of Lattice. Also, not surprised about Morgan because Morgan writes a lot of books. She edits and she has a full time job.
Oh, you're a busy
Like,
bee.
yeah, like I not surprised either. Okay. Way too many people coming here. Like, I haven't read. I'm gonna start being like, okay, we're gonna do a body read, friends. I just love good stories. We all do. And it is on Dolores' list. So any closing remarks? I usually like to keep these shows under an hour or around an hour. I also have a few announcements that I waited to the end, so not to like chop the conversation. Also, I kind of like
Sure.
wanted to get into the conversation, uh, because I know when I mentioned we were going to have a queer romance episode, everyone was like, yes, like good.
Yes.
Any
Um,
closing remarks? Anything you want to promote? Floor
sure.
is your.
Actually.
We love promoting things, so
So I will just quickly promote my books that I have out. I have Border Control Escape, which is a queer contemporary marriage of convenience. Um, I also have Love Lorena, which is a sapphic princess matchmaker romance, and The Orange and Pink Sunset is my new sapphic poetry chapbook. So if you enjoy poetry, it's not too long, so it's a quick read. I hope it makes you feel things, and yeah, just and my website should be linked below, so all of my books are available there.
yes, 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 yes.
Yes, and thank you for
So
having
I'm
me.
gonna go. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for responding to the call.
Of course.
Uh, I had a few people who were like, if you don't find anyone, I have friends, and I'm like, I want again. This is about like we're talking identities, and I'm like, I would much rather someone want to come
Yeah.
than being like, oh, you're queer. Do you want to come to a show about queer romances? Like, no, that's
Right.
not the approach. So thank you so much for responding to the call, for coming in. Love the conversation. Um, this always lives as a replay, and it will be on the channel as long as YouTube exists.
All right.
So if you want to share it too, you're more than welcome to. You're part of the talent of the video, so it's
Thank you.
partially
It's been a
yours.
pleasure.
Yes. Uh, so, and now quick announcement. So for offline reasons, live reasons, the June episode is gonna be moved to July. That's the anonymous live critique that we're gonna do. So I'm extending that, and there's not gonna be a episode on June. So enjoy the first of your summer, and then probably at that we will announce the rest of the topics for the rest of the year, like I did before, because I am crazy like that. I'm like, I originally wanted to have the entire year, and this was like, maybe 6 months will be ideal. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Um, a few other things. At the end of June is gonna be the AWC, which is the Author Tours Writing Conference. There is a bunch of topics. Do check their website out. If anyone who is Wrench can drop the link, I will appreciate that. What else? Uh, I think that's the biggest update. Yeah. So AWC at the end of, here we go. AWC at the end of the month. The June episode is not gonna happen, so we're not gonna have a romance writers room on June. We're gonna move it to July, cause real life, offline life, it's having a hell of a life with me. So, uh, that's just gonna be it for us. Again, thank you so very much, Ivy, for coming here,
Thanks for having
talking
me.
to me. You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for being lovely, very welcoming, having wonderful questions for Ivy. Again, check her books down at the description box, and I'll see you guys around. Goodbye.